And let's see, first order of business, any changes to the agenda?
I just found a typo just this minute. So at the fourth item, instead of reading table 3.1, it should say diagram 3.1. So we don't have a table 3.1.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Okay,
That's it.
okay, very good. Public comment, Miss Public.
I just figured I'd show up and introduce myself. Not sure who I responded to that put on, of course, form that you're looking to members. But I'm interested, I was on the DRB as an alternate. That was really, I was not comfortable with that role. I felt like I was interpreting stuff that I didn't agree with. And you guys are the people that do the stuff that I think needs to be worked on. If now's the right time, my background is a civil engineer, I've been a contractor, and mother of four, I've lived here for 31 years, or more than that.
Great, we need you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, good. Well then, when we start talking about this table, you can just throw it all at her. I'm tapping out.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, down to the diagram. So there were a couple of things on it that were.
Okay.
Noticed.
Can I introduce it?
Yeah.
Does anybody else want one?
The copy?
I need that.
So there were a couple of points that I noticed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. One is, it says,
Yeah.
100-foot setback measured from the top of a bank with the top of a slope.
Yeah, I think those are still reversed, Larry, aren't they?
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I think it's 50 on the top, 100 on the bottom.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Makes more sense now.
What's that again?
I think the dimensions are reversed on the diagram.
The dimensions, yes.
Yeah.
50 on the top,
Yes.
and 100 on the lower, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
And it's slope, not bank on the left-hand side, and bank, not slope on the right-hand side.
Wow, good.
And I was trying to figure out something to make it clearer, as far as how steep a slope it is or something, but I couldn't come up with anything really that worked very well. I think 50 works good on that side because you've already got a sliding slope basically, so that you'll end up with maybe 100 feet anyway.
Yeah, if I read the section, it says 100 feet from all these brooks, measured horizontally from top of bank, which would be the right side, and then 50 feet if measured from top of slope. So yeah, I'll be just flip them around. And I don't know, I mean, you and I were kind of involved in the emails with Penny back and forth, right? So I don't know what you want to do with respect to any of that.
Okay, so these tags definitely need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. And then the conversation, so Penny and Jeff, as he said, had an extensive back and forth conversation about this. And after reading through the whole thing,
Right.
I decided, I mean, Jeff's sort of central point was any simple diagram is not going to convey the full complexity in a way that lay people can follow it without having to consult those who are more knowledgeable about these things. And in many of these situations, especially if there's a project that would encroach into the setbacks and or go over a wetland, there's going to be a required consultation with the Agency of Natural Resources wetland specialist, because you need a wetland or a stream crossing permit from A&R if you're going to get into that terrain. And so where I came down was the tags are off. And so you'll see that in yellow highlighted at the top of the illustration and at the bottom of the illustration are two minor revisions that I'm suggesting would help to put in context what this simple diagram is trying to accomplish. So first of all, to the word typical on the top, every stream and bank is different, right? This is not, what's illustrated here is not an atypical illustration. It's a typical setup, but it certainly doesn't exclude all the different variations on this theme that you'll find in any town, in any rural setting on a stream bank. So I think it's just good to say, this is an illustration of a stream bank, not a wetland, and it's a typical stream bank cross-section, not in all cases diagram. And then the yellow tagline at the bottom, Penny felt it was important to reference the definition that we have in our definition section about streams and stream banks and top of bank and top of slope. And after looking at that definition critically, I think it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but again, it conveys the broad brush meaning of what this is about. And that's really all that we can do with a diagram like this. We're not going to get into all the specifics of stream hydrology and 100-year floods and 500-year floods and trying to illustrate every single aspect of it. That would be like out of an engineering textbook, and we don't want people to get lost in the weeds. We want them to just look at something and get a general sense of where their no-build zone is and what they need to pay attention to. So I think relatively simple changes with the two edits that were noted before I started talking, which is probably all we need to do, but I'm open to feedback on that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure angles for a slope, basically. What would, but I don't know. I couldn't come up with anything that worked easily. So,
Yeah.
I guess it's not perfect, but
Yeah.
it'll work.
Yeah.
So any further discussion on this, or? Okay, with those minor changes, we'll move on to let's see, consultant RFP for Municipal Planning Grant. RFP.
Okay, let me present this one. All right, so a couple months ago, we got notification from the State Department of Housing and Community Development that the grant application that I prepared and submitted on the town's behalf was funded. And so step one was for us to sign the paperwork to actually start the money flowing. That's done. We get 40% of the total grant funds, which are in the ballpark of $20,000 upfront. And so we're able to go out and hire the talent that we want to work on this project based on what we asked to do or proposed to do in the grant application. Step two is to put it out to bid, and that's what this document is. It follows a guideline that the state gives you to say what it is that you're looking for help with and spell it out in some detail, not a huge amount of detail. And then part of what you do is you see this at the top of page 2. There's a chart that spells out our time frame and the basic task description and our broad brush estimate of how many hours of a consultant's time we think this is going to take. There's also a couple of the first 2 line items that are for me to do. And we're really just on step 1 here. And the consultant, in preparing their response, we gave them all the specific tasks and deliverables right underneath the chart. Very broad brush. And then what are the broad brush outcomes that we're looking for from this project? How the project will be managed, and then specific guidelines starting near the top of page 3 for what they have to submit to be considered for this project. And so this typically takes the form of a letter, and they tell us why they're interested in doing the project, what their qualifications are, their take on the scope of work as spelled out above, what their schedule are, can they do the work within the prescribed timeframe, and confidently say that they will get the job done within that timeframe. what their budget would be, and this is really a matter of taking the estimated hours that are in the chart and translating it into what they think it will actually take. And, you know, they're certainly free to suggest, oh, this will take more hours, this will take less hours, and what they charge on an hourly basis. And I put in a clause here, which when I work as a consultant, which I'm working now for the town of Barry as a consultant on a different planning grant for that town, not to exceed total amount awarded, so that we have some assurance when we go to contract that they're not going to charge more than what we can pay them through the grant. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, year and a half, you think it'll take?
Well, I think that you have to be sensitive to the rhythm of life in this town. And the rhythm of life is that we're all pretty busy with our day-to-day lives and usual schedules through the spring, and then things get less busy in the summer. So there are certain things that are better to do in the downtime like the summer. And then again, as you approach the holidays, people tend to be less available for meetings and activities. So this chart, this work plan chart and time frame reflects that. I don't see it taking a year and a half. I think this is maybe more like a year-long project, but the consultant is free to propose a different or extended timeline or a shorter timeline as they see fit. You know, and then again, it's up to us to look at their proposal and decide, perhaps after some conversation, that we can live with their alternate schedule, or that we would still like to stick to the original schedule.
So does this group approve the statement of work that
Yes.
they provide for you?
Well, we'll put it this way. I'm giving you this as a draft because I wanted you to get more eyes on it than just me, and have you tell me if there's anything in there in that draft which doesn't make sense to you, or which you think is a mistake and should be changed. And then once you've approved the draft, I'm going to send it out I'm on listservs for planners across New England, and I'm going to let the whole listserv know that the town is looking for proposals for this project, and give them a deadline and see what comes in. We may not get any proposals, or we might get 5, or we might get 2, or we might get 1. And so when we hit the deadline at the end of this month, we'll have to assess kind of where we are. So to your question, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes in. My thought is that rather than have the whole commission be involved in the details of negotiating a contract and all that, I'd rather have just 1 or 2 members of the commission, you know, looking at the proposals that come in and looking, you know, helping me discern, you know, which we think would be in the best interest of the town. And you'll see that further on down in the RFP, it says that we reserve the right to ask candidates to come in and talk to us. When I last did a project like this in both Barry, the one I'm working on now, and when I worked in Charlotte, there was an interview process, but it doesn't need to be a large group, and it's fine to just be 1 or 2 people, because, you know, you all know what questions to ask. And I mean, and again, I'm looking for another set of eyes and ears on, you know, to hear what the person or persons say, and, you know, does this make sense? Do we think this person is legit? Do their references check out? Those kinds of questions. And I'm confident that we can reach a decision together. So I don't think we need to vote on it as a commission. I just feel like I wanted to bring it before this group now, because it's an opportunity for you to weigh in and make sure that I got it right before it goes out.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
So,
Wouldn't you normally get a call from people that were interested in writing a proposal before they did it? So you'd have a pretty good handle on whether somebody was going to do it or not.
Yeah, people can certainly call, and you know, typically they would call first just to, you know, talk
Yeah, you
through
think
a little
so?
bit
I would.
if they're interested. Yeah, and I did, by the way, when I was working on the grant, because I wanted the hours and the dollar figures to be grounded in what could be actually done, I did shop around the basic work plan to a couple of planning consultants and said, what do you think of this? I mean, is this something that is realistic? You think that if this were funded, that you might be interested in bidding on it? And I did hear back from a couple of people.
so
I got it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so grant of 20,900 plus whatever the town matches, the 2,300, so 23,000, just
Yeah.
round up. That gets split amongst the contractor and all these internal town hours as well, or or town hours still up above and beyond that?
We're actually not allowed to charge for hours that our staff puts in.
Okay, so
Yeah.
everything has to come out of that,
Yes.
and then whatever you guys take for mailing and.
Yeah, the match is gonna be mostly, the cost of mailing a postcard to promote the survey, the cost of putting on meetings, including providing on-site childcare so that parents and young children can attend, renting a space if we need to rent a space, publishing and promoting the survey, those kinds of hard costs. So I'm confident that we can accomplish those things within the $2,300 budget. And so we'll spend that money and then get reimbursed for it at the end of the grant project. We can take, back to the timeline question, just to be clear, the state's time frame for when the grant project must be completed and the final report is due is December 2027. So they see it as a potential 2-year time frame, but we don't have to take 2 years. We can it can be whatever we think the project needs. And of course, I think there's something to be said for creating some momentum in a project like this, since it's about public outreach and engagement, and then not waiting too long to bring closure to that momentum and create a report with recommendations that would implement some of what was learned during the outreach.
Could you define key stakeholders? Who are the key stakeholders? Like the landowners in the center, or in the flats, or?
Yes. So because this is an outreach project mostly, anybody who would be strongly affected by the kinds of regulatory changes that we have been and will continue to discuss here would be stakeholders. So yes, property owners in the flats, if there's infrastructure changes and improvements that are made there. Property owners in the village center here, the Underhill Center Village, for the same reason. Certainly, folks who are vested in the idea of building more housing in town. So I think of the folks behind the Harvest Crossing project, the Congregational Church, for example. They have a documented interest in building more housing, and we want them at the table. Surveys.
But they can't build any more than they've already been approved for.
Well,
there, at that spot.
In that spot,
In that
correct.
spot.
But the same group of folks could propose other projects in other parts of town, other parts of the two villages or other parts of town. And so we want to hear from them. Like, why would you build on this and go somewhere else and propose another project? What are the challenges in doing that? I mean, those are the kinds of questions we're going to be asking. And then, I think, a lot of these stakeholders are going to be just the whole town. So, we're going to do surveys that are addressed to the whole town. Both the invitation will go out to all residents. We're going to do a design workshop, and it'll be a come one, come all event. Anybody who wants to show up can show up and participate in drawing things on maps where they think they should go. And so on and so forth. So, in the end, the most important stakeholders are the Planning Commission as the launching pad for changes to the bylaws that build on what we learned through this project, and then the Select Board, who have the power to adopt changes to the zoning reg.
All right.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Was this started with the idea of how to get more buildable lots in Underhill, in a nutshell? Or is it just in the flats area, like we need to work at density here versus?
The focus is in both villages. So we're going with the overarching goal and set of values that this is pursuing come out of the town plan. Because the town plan says that all other things equal, that Underhill intends to concentrate most housing and commercial development in the two historic village centers, as much as possible. And great intention, but in recent years, since the town plan was adopted in 2021, we haven't actually done much to facilitate that goal, to enable it. And so this project comes out of a recognition that, of course, the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
And,
That's the most expensive place to try to
yeah,
concentrate development.
and, the infrastructure is lacking in both places except for water service in the flats. So, that kind of infrastructure for wastewater and water is a necessary precondition to the kinds of development that are envisioned in the town plan. So, that has to be solved along the way. But, more than anything else, what I learned through my work in the town of Charlotte, which is my job before here, was that no matter how well thought out and careful you are to draft regulations to enable infill housing development in historic village centers, there are always going to be people who, for whatever reason, rise up in the community and say, this is a great idea, but I don't want to look out my window and see it.
Well, I guess that's why I brought it up, because it's like if you could add 100 housing units in a village center, and that necessitated sewage and all these other things.
Yeah.
Those are huge costs.
Yeah.
Huge impact, versus 100 units spread out among the town that did necessitate those things. Why is the focus on the village center?
Well, you'd have to change the zoning.
You'd
have-
the state wants to avoid sprawl.
Yes.
You'd have to change things like 10-acre zoning in
Oh,
certain areas. And
I
so-
absolutely think our zoning should change on that personally.
I
Yeah.
think that would be a very hard uphill battle, really. But anyway, it would be a discussion we could have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got a
We did
question.
try to actually reduce the lot sizes in the village center at some point, but it was shot right down. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's why, I guess that's, I don't think I have a unique situation, but the zoning as it was drawn up does not apply very well to my property personally, as to what the zoning descriptions are, what they're trying to achieve.
It's a
So,
little bit arbitrary, but it's inevitably going to be that way. Lines are drawn and a certain areas, it'd be this or that,
Right.
water conservation area, and so you take this whole area,
yeah.
just draw a line basically. But it's inevitably going to be somewhat arbitrary. It's just.
Yeah, and there's gonna be stuff, I know there's 10 acres zoning, there's 3 acres zoning, and 5 and 15, whatever. Just, there's a lot of cheaper ways to put housing into.
Yeah, but we don't want to promote like sprawl, it's like it changes the character of the town. The state is actually encouraging
Yeah.
building in the village center. And
Building some, but we,
right now I guess my question about all this is, before this all starts, will the townwide sewer thing be publicized and on the table? Will everybody that this consultant talks to be aware of that as a possibility, and that might excite them more about what
Yes.
the consultant, so that will
Yeah.
be,
That's a concurrent process. So
okay.
I just recently got an update on the Jericho wastewater project for the flats, and I mean, it's moving along. It's still probably at least 2 years away from actually getting built and operational. But the preliminary engineering study is 60% complete at this point, and they're going to have some pretty good information about what the infrastructure would look like and what the general cost parameters would be by the early fall of this year at the latest. So at that point, information will start to percolate through the town, including what can be shared with property owners. And they actually surveyed property owners in the flats on the Jericho side of the town line and asked the same kind of questions that Zach and David proposed in the survey that we talked about a few months ago. And they're getting pretty interesting answers.
Like positive or negative?
A lot of folks who were surveyed, a lot of property owners said that they would definitely consider hooking up to a municipal wastewater system if that service were available. Some people said they want to know more about the long-term viability of their existing in-ground systems before they committed to buying into the system for hookup fees. And of course, they need to know more about the costs, like the operating costs, in terms of what their monthly fees would be as well, besides the hookup. But there were people. It seemed like more than half the property owners indicated that they were open to the conversation and considering that option should it become available.
So now, just a question about all of this. I don't know how I want to get off track here.
Yeah.
But So they didn't do any surveys of the, the folks who don't live in flats, right?
Correct.
So when they do that, they'll get a real feel for townwide support, which might be,
Yeah.
it has to go to a bond vote probably, right?
Well, the thing, there's a lot of really big unknowns, right, in the financing. We talked about this before. So, 10 years ago, the only way to finance a system like this would be you go for whatever state grants are available through the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. These are actually loan funds, not grant funds. And then you bond for the rest, for a general obligation bond for the town.
Yeah.
But now the state has created this CHIP program, which provides a possibility of municipalities partnering with developers to build new systems where the municipality would be using proceeds from increased property taxes to pay down the debt rather than general obligation bonds. And then there's also the legislature is currently considering and probably will pass a big infusion of funds to add to what the state already antes up for grants for communities who want to build these systems, because the state recognizes that you got to have the infrastructure to build more housing.
Okay.
And communities that don't have the infrastructure ready, they need help, extra help to do this. So it could be that the local share that has to be bonded through general obligation bonds might only be 20% of the whole project cost.
Okay. Now, so when you talked about partnering with a developer, you mean like Tetros who wants to develop the mill yard.
Right.
So they would have to incur the cost of a large portion of the system, right?
The town actually assumes the risk under the CHIP program, but it's you need to partner with a developer who needs to prepare the pro formas and the engineering plans and the whole 9 yards to assemble the financing. And then if the project proves to be feasible, the town still owns the risk, but the state will essentially say, well, here's the money to build it, and you can pay it back through increased property tax revenues rather than through general.
And that would be spread out through the whole town, or just those properties that were affected?
Just the properties that were affected.
For the property tax?
No,
That's townwide.
That'll be spread out through the whole town.
Yeah.
That would be-
Everybody.
Yeah, but if it's only 20% of the project costs,
Yeah.
it becomes a lot less bitter a pill to swallow.
Less but.
Yeah,
But it's still spread out through all the property in the house.
Right.
It's gonna happen.
yeah. So, and the argument would be that there's going to be a net increase to the town's revenues by building the property tax base for properties that would not otherwise get built and be paying taxes.
So you're asking the entire town to pay an increased property tax so that they can't develop their properties, but they can develop the town, property in the center of the town.
That's the whole,
That will
like,
never fly.
that's like the whole argument I've had about
That will
this.
never fly.
So I'm so against like government, like public government funds, i.e. taxpayers' money, going into basically subsidize developers' projects.
Right.
The way I would do it is like, hey, you foot the bill, developer, build it. Then once we get actualized taxes, then we'll take a portion of that and like feed it back to you. I feel like these guys are getting subsidies without a true guarantee that like this project's gonna finish, because then are there like mechanics liens and, bonds posted to make sure this thing
Not to
doesn't just go
mention,
dead?
all the rest of the property owners in town that are not involved in this get zero benefit.
Well, they might get to go to a new restaurant or, think about it.
It's just
Okay,
No,
I'm
it's
thinking
just-
about it, they get zero benefit. I don't want to pay taxes to have the ability to go to a restaurant.
Well, it's, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
We'll see what the survey brings.
Okay,
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
I think we ask the questions, we make it clear that, that there's no guarantees, and we see what people have to say about it. I think, there was just this past week, there was information that came out of a statewide poll that was commissioned through this project called Let's Build Together. It's headed up by the former mayor of Burlington, and it's a pro-housing project. Basically, they're working with the legislature to identify barriers to building more housing and try to address them through legislation and funding. And they asked questions in the survey, what do you think is Vermont's most pressing social and economic problem right now? And they found that margins of 80% and more all said housing. The housing crisis was the most important problem because it affects elders' ability to move out of larger homes than what they need anymore, and the availability of housing that's built, purpose-built for elders who are facing reduced physical ability
So
to
do they
take care of
just-
their properties.
And I agree with all that, I'm just saying that, you just said that, like, the reason we're not just developing or changing our rules to make what we have existing more developable is because that's somehow encouraging sprawl.
It is,
What you
yeah,
just described was infrastructure that added restaurants and things like that into this center. That's sprawl, guys. The roads are already.
No, it's not sprawl.
no.
It's
Not?
infill. It's taking
It's in,
what's there and making it
well, so,
better.
and I guess what I'm
Village
saying is, isn't that
It's-
the same as taking 15-acre zoning and making it 3-acre zoning if it's already there? If the roads are already there, and how, why is that not the same to get more housing? And cheaper, because you can still do
It's not,
septic on site.
Because you're building it you're building all that house, whoever's gonna build out in the hinterlands is gonna be a wealthy person that wants to live in Underhill. And so if you build, if you open up the center to development, you can have more affordable housing for rentals and places for people who really want to live here but can't afford to live here. So that's
Right.
one of the goals. So I
I
mean,
get
it's,
that goal, but you are actually asking all those other people that live here to foot the bill.
we'll see. We'll see how it ends up.
yeah,
We
it'll
don't know.
work out. I mean, I'm totally for it, but I think it's a bit of a haul to get
I
there.
guess I'm not against it, I'm just, I
I think,
don't think it's either or. I think it could be some of both.
I
Yeah,
think no matter what you tell people, if they tell them that they have to pay 20% of it, you're gonna get a lot of no's. If they didn't have to pay anything, I think there would be a broad support for it, because it would make it a much nicer town to live in, and it's just unfortunate that that's where we're at. The state should really think about maybe, I know they're in a tough spot too, but
Yeah.
kicking in more,
and this whole idea of having the bond be based on increased property tax revenues from the built structures is very well established in communities, mostly urban communities around Vermont. It's called tax increment financing, and Burlington does it, South Burlington does it, Williston does it, Winooski does it. And the problem before this legislature created the CHIP program was that the way that those programs were set up legally and financially was way too overwhelming for smaller communities to take that on. And so this CHIP program was specifically set up and is being now starting to be implemented in a way that's accessible to rural communities who want to take advantage of this financing mechanism. And they recognize that there's still lots of barriers to get over before it can be proven to be financially viable. There's skepticism about it, but there's also a lot of excitement from towns that would like to more fully develop their existing town and village centers to avoid housing and other commercial developments sprawling out and eating up large chunks of open land. And that latter piece is it's a centerpiece of state policy goals. I think a lot of people in Underhill, if you ask them, well, would you prefer open land or would you prefer single houses on big lots scattered throughout the countryside? I think most people would say, I came here for the forest and the farmland, and I want to keep it that way. And I would prefer, if we're going to do more housing, that it be where it's appropriate, where it's already dense, to make it more dense, where people have access to services, where they can, perhaps walk to school or bike to school rather than be 10 miles out in the countryside. So that's the thinking. It's bringing this whole process, the CHIP program that's being rolled out now, and the increased state funding for wastewater and other infrastructure for small towns is all in service of the idea that, in Vermont, there's broad agreement that we should not be sprawling development out into the countryside. So otherwise, we're going to end up looking like New Jersey.
And I get what you're
Hey, I'm
saying,
from
but I
New
think
Jersey.
and I'll tell you, I'm
No
from
offense.
From is the word.
Yeah, right.
Essex Junction, I was born in 62, the
Yeah.
year IBM moved in.
Yeah,
And there's something called impact fees.
yes.
I still own a huge acreage of land in Essex Junction that is not developed.
Uh-huh.
Impact fees?
Yeah.
We
Like,
don't have impact fees in Underhill.
well, that's my point.
Yeah.
This little statement about, oh, the developers could get a little bit here and a little bit there, a little bit there, and no, the developers should pay 100% of it. You're adding 40 apartments in Underhill flats. Great, build a mini sewage treatment plant, build the infrastructure for it.
Yeah.
Those houses should pay for
Yeah, that's how
it, period.
developing an area, I mean, look, you don't see developers driving around in broke down, station wagons, man. They're riding around in Range Rovers and stuff. Like, they're making money. They don't need any more subsidies. Like,
The developers don't need help, they just need to be.
Yeah, but a
told that
person
they
who
can
owns a house and wants to put 3 apartments in it, but can't because they don't have
well, that's
proper
different. I'm talking
septic
about
plan,
like,
they're not the ones that
No,
should
I'm
be
talking about-
paying for
Right.
Well, that's
4
it.
units in that sewer
Right.
plant. That would be, that would be exorbitantly expensive for them
Yeah.
because the whole system is going to cost millions of dollars. So I've got 4 units. I'm not going to spend $50,000 to put those 4 units in my house.
Right, why not? It costs, to build
Because-
4 septic systems out in the country, it costs more than $50,000.
Well, it's not
Not
with
somebody
the-
that has a large capital background.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's the opposite side of it too. There's
yeah.
some large landowners here in Underhill, myself included, who would have loved to take off a 3-acre parcel for my kid, but I can't. I gotta take off a 20-acre parcel.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
So it's not
We-
sprawl in that.
We are going to be talking in a few weeks about the idea of changing the residential allowed density in the rural district along Route 15, rural residential, because there's a sense that the rules are written now in a way to restrict people who live in this medium density residential district from being able to build anything, and
Right.
that if we're as we think about how to adjust the residential density that's allowed, we should not be constraining people in the medium density district from building housing that they have the land to cover.
I think you could find a lot of housing opening up
Yes,
if you let people develop land they have responsibly.
yes.
This is expanding a village area, really, in a way.
At some level, yeah.
Not quite, but it's taking the village center, and then it's saying there's certain areas around it that
Yes.
could be developed much more densely than they
Well, we've already
really
kind of
are.
done that, right?
So it'd be expanding that, I think. It's
Well, but
not
we
a
are,
huge thing,
yeah.
but it does help. a
yeah,
little
David
bit.
has been an advocate for opening up the zoning district maps as part of the work that we're going to be doing in a couple of years when we update the town plan. And I think we all are agreeable to that idea because, that when you change the zoning district boundaries, it's considered under state law a change to the town plan. And so it makes sense to do that in a really thoughtful way at the same time that you're updating the town plan. I think I told you this when we.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the zoning maps and the zoning descriptions of the areas don't jive.
Yeah, and
Well,
they-
Very
the
well.
Yeah, but
the
you
mapping
could
thing,
still
though,
do a
I'm
PRD
not-
on your land, are you in the 15-acre water conservation district?
I had 800 feet of road frontage, that was in the 15-acre. And then I have 70 acres, it's all in 3 acres, and it's wetlands and crap, I would never develop that. But if you read the development thing, it says, oh, we want to concentrate development on existing roads where existing power is.
Yeah, but
You
you
don't-
could still do a PRD on your land. You could take, whatever, 25 acres and put 5-acre lots on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then you would have to have the other 40 acres or 60 acres that's crap, and that would be common land.
Yeah, and
So why wouldn't you do that?
because it costs $40,000 of planning to do that.
Well, I mean, that's
And I don't
the
want
price you have.
But I don't want 5 people out there, I want 2.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, man, you'll have the ability to have your grandkids live there someday. I don't know what to tell you here, but it's.
well, I'm just saying that if you read the zoning descriptions of what things are supposed to do, like 15 acres is supposed to be on steep slopes and preserve open lands. And then you read that where it's 3-acre zoning, it's supposed to be along existing roads and encourage development along existing infrastructure. In my case, it's 180 degrees opposite. I don't know why, and I do know why. Somebody drew a line 1,000 feet up Underhill Road, and then 2,000 feet up the road. It's very straight. It doesn't bear a lot of, but I went around the town and looked at where it went from 15 acres to 3 acres. It happens a lot. There's a lot of places that's 15 acre zoning, that all the lots are an acre or less, but they were there before. You know, just, it doesn't seem to bear a lot of, doesn't pass the sniff test on what.
Well, when you get around to mapping, I've been looking at the map situation, and the idea is to try and simplify it in respect to where the lines run through the middles of properties. If we can run along property lines, it would be an improvement in the general zoning
Brad's brought
map.
that up a lot, and that may make sense, but I just think that,
It may or may not, I don't know. I've been looking at
I don't
it.
think
It's not
15
gonna be
acre
easy.
zoning makes a lot of sense personally, if it's only, I don't know what it's for. I don't know, I guess I don't get the arbitrariness between 3 acre zoning and 15 acre zoning.
Yeah, well,
It's been that way for, how long? 50 years?
Yeah.
No. I don't
Yeah,
know.
back to the 70s. Yeah,
so
so that's the argument. in
you raised some
favor
good
of it.
points. I think we will get to that later.
Yeah.
It's not on the short-term agenda for the planning commission this early this year, but I think it's a great topic for conversation. And,
Yeah.
we really should, whatever else happens, we should make sure that we don't put it off until too close to when we have to have the municipal plan submitted for approval, because it does take time to think through the policy implications of moving zoning district boundaries.
We'd have to have a lot of input from a lot of
Yeah,
people too. A
exactly.
lot of landowners would
Yes.
have to come in and voice their
Yeah,
concerns.
in general, I'm not in
Ideas.
favor of it.
Yeah,
Are we-
I'm
Well, you
not
gotta
saying
put-
it's easy.
Which
I'm not
I,
saying
We'll
it's
get
easy. I'm
to
just
it.
saying
We'll
that it
get
just
to
seems that what we describe in our zoning rules and what our map shows don't seem to jive at all. As, the goal for a zoning district.
yeah, well, I don't disagree with you.
So,
Right.
and every time I brought it up, they said, well, we can't change the maps. All we can do is edit the zoning rules. And I'm like, how many pages are you guys up to now? Like, why don't we change the maps? Oh, that's a big deal. I'm like, okay.
It is.
Yeah, but the whole process of changing the maps is probably gonna take a few years, because by the time we change the map and change the bylaws,
Yeah.
and then present it to the lawyer, and then present it to the select board for approval, that's like a few years, right, Larry? Would you
And
say?
if it's going to be changing boundaries around properties and so on, that will go before voters.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As it should.
Yeah.
As it
Yes.
should.
But I agree.
Yeah.
I prefer to have these things go before the voters. I like to keep the
It just
town
seems like-
involved.
I don't know, every time I brought it up, it just, the solution, the short-term solution is always to get things more complicated. I just think it's, work toward getting things simpler versus more complicated.
Well, we kind of got sidetracked here.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good debate.
Are we following our, we're off?
No,
the
Dave,
agenda?
it's your job today to keep us on track.
Oh, okay, where are we? Where are we?
So, can I ask, did anybody have any quick reactions or questions about the RFP draft?
It makes sense to me. The only question I would have is, because I'm kind of ignorant to it, but I assume that you're gonna send this out, RFP is gonna come in with their estimated
Proposals.
cost.
Yep.
Outside of knowing what our grant is.
Yeah.
So they could come in like above our grant and we just kind of have to decline them all, or they come below and then whatever's left, what happens to that money? Like if the proposal's 15 grand, we have 21, what do we do with the other 6?
So your proposed draft had the dollar amount of the grant in there.
Oh, so they will see that.
They will see, yeah. Yeah, and usually, from personal experience, a consultant who really wants the work will propose a budget that fits within, what's available. They may have to, they do often take a risk, like, okay, well, I think I can get this project done for this amount of money within the hours that are proposed.
Yeah.
But if it takes me more than that, then I understand that the risk is on me to get it done. Because, of course, they depend on having good references from their clients next time they want to bid on a project. And so, the job one is to satisfy the clients and to show that you get delivering on deliverables. And so you will do what you can as a consultant to get it done, and get it done within the time frame and within the budget that's proposed. But, you know, like I said, there's no guarantee we're going to get multiple responses, much less even one good one. We'll have to see once we put it out. You know, we'll leave it out there for a month and promote it. And if I don't get any responses after 2 weeks, I'm going to put it out again. And I'm probably going to pick up the phone and call some people on the list. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, yeah, it sounds
is-
like you covered that pretty well, I
Yeah.
think, yes.
Is there one or two people who are still going to be on the commission a month from now who would be willing to raise their hand and say, I will sit with you, Larry, and look at anything that comes in?
I will sit with you, Larry, and look at.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Larry.
There you go.
You sure you're not on vacation? He's gonna be on vacation that day, Larry, I know.
So shall we move on to residential density in villages? We are running behind.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I made a couple changes since we last looked at this. I realized that the first draft that I sent around actually was duplicative, and so I took out the duplication. And so now we're down to two sets of changes. The first one, it's as we discussed, except that I dropped Underhill Center Village maximum multifamily density to 4 units. From 5, I think it originally said 5, and to match the flats. And a number of people said, as we talked about it, that 4 units was probably the max it should be in the less dense Underhill Center Village. So I changed that from 5 to 4. And I clarified that there's 2 different changes that are on the table here, which is number 1 was to change multifamily projects from conditional use review required to a permitted use, meaning that they only have to earn a zoning permit, they don't have to go before the DRB. And then secondly, to increase the possible scope of multifamily projects that would qualify for simplified permitting in the Underhill Center Village from 3 units to 4 units. It's now capped at 3. So that's the first change. And then the second change, which is the one with the diagram on the top of page 2, diagram still applies. I think it's still helpful. Shows how a typical village lot with a large single-family dwelling could accommodate up to 4 units if we increase the residential density. And then the important part of this change is that it's looking ahead to the politics of bringing this before the town around people having reactions to higher density limits in the villages, and giving people the comfort, if it is a comfort to some people who might otherwise be opposed, that there's a cap on how many units based on the acreage of the lot. And most of the lots in both villages are small lots. There are a few that are bigger. And so this change would mostly affect lots that have more acreage within the village boundaries. And it would say that you could not put more than, for multifamily dwellings, you couldn't put more than 6 units per acre in the flats and more than 4 units per acre in the village center.
When we're talking about, and I know this was a sticking point, I think from way early on when we started this and the last meeting, especially from Penny, when we were differentiating between like internal units versus like external separate
Right.
physical units.
That's
like,
right.
Is there a way to, like, I know you can explain it to us now as we're reading it, but say like 10, 15 years from now, somebody goes and reads this, how do they interpret it? Right?
Yes.
Is there a clear way, is there clarity in the language that everybody from here till, 2200 AD is going to know what all that means?
So the thing that Penny suggested, which I incorporated into this revision, was specifying that this maximum residential density, which is a new concept, would be a new concept in the land use regs, is specific to multifamily dwellings. Multifamily dwellings are, by definition, multiple units that are part of the same structure. So it could be anything from a large, what had been a single family house, being divided into 4 apartments to duplex, to side-by-side duplexes, or as in the illustration here, it could be a combination of those two. So you're dividing the larger house, existing house, into some apartments, and then you're maybe putting another apartment into the attic or the second level of a formal garage structure that also already exists on the
So-
property.
Should there be any other, like, I don't know, I think about, so my brain comes from a very like diverse
Yeah.
world of development.
Sure.
So I think about like all of the potential nuances.
Yeah.
And is there a way to, because I can also visualize this depending on who's doing the project, right? As
Mhm.
becoming like some like really dingy drop house type place. Like you got 3 200 square foot units in that garage and you got like people piled up in it. Now, I know there's gonna be state ways that the
Yes.
state can maybe regulate, but should there be other safety factors in terms of like minimum square footages or anything like that for these units? Or does it matter?
I think if we were having this conversation with a developer in the room who builds rental housing, I think he would say, well, first of all, all rental housing is very closely regulated by the State Department of Labor. You have to pass multiple standards, make sure that the building is built to code and inspected to be code after it's built and maintained that way. And then they would also say, look, I'm going to build units to what the market wants, right? And the market is not looking for 200 square foot units. I mean, maybe in Burlington where you have students, they're renting by the bedroom,
Yeah.
in these big older houses in the hill section that are being carved up for student housing. But for the most part, in a community like Underhill, people who want to live in the village will look for, 1, 2 bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
And those to build to that demand, they're going to be probably a minimum of 900 to 1,200 square feet, and some will be larger than that. So, and the market drives those decisions. So rather than have the town say, it has to be X number of square feet, I think, you let a developer take the rules and propose things that fit within the rules with broad latitude for determining the type, the style, the finishes, the things that developers like to do, so that they have a finished product that they're going to be able to market and sell either as a rental or as an owner unit. Because, one of the biggest places where there's way more demand than there is supply is what we call missing middle housing. So it's housing that working age people can afford that's within reasonable driving distance of where they work. And, there's just not, especially in Underhill, there's not a lot of rental units that meet that need. And, that people can afford, and people may say they want a single family house, but the bottom line is they need a place to live that's not going to break the bank, that fits into their budget. And it's unbelievable to me when I look at the statistics, how many people are paying more than 30% or even more than 50% of their income for housing costs now. And that's inclusive of homeowners as well as renters. And it's a problem in Underhill. It's a problem in almost every community in the state. And, that's why there's so much conversation about increasing the supply of workforce housing, missing middle housing, because, there's literally nothing that people can afford. And so you have people commuting large distances. And going back to previous work that I did in Chittenden County, at one point I heard a statistic from the St. Albans Director of Economic Development. He did a survey of commuting patterns from Franklin County to employment in Chittenden County. He found that 10,000 people a day were driving down I-89 every single workday to get to job from homes in Franklin County to jobs in Chittenden County. And that's staggering. I mean, think about the carbon footprint of all that driving. And
What do you
think
think is on
about,
Route 15?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's at 7:30.
yes,
And it's not 10,000, but there's
there's a lot, yeah.
It's
40
one
cars
after
going
another.
the other way every day too.
Yeah.
Harry, what am I missing here? Maximum 5 units over on one page, Underhill Flats Village Center,
Uh-huh.
and then 6 multifamily dwellings over on page 2.
Yeah, because remember it has to do with a density thing versus
Yes.
it has to do with a density. Remember, and it goes back to like, what, November or something when we
Yes.
talked about it?
Yeah.
We started.
I remember we were upstairs for it.
Yeah.
So
So is one saying 6 per acre and one saying 5 per parcel? Is that
Right,
what-
because parcels vary in size, and most of the parcels in the villages are small. But, those that are not small, those that have, a large backyard that is not built, could accommodate more units if the acreage is there. So it's a density issue, not just what.
So it's like
number of
if
units
this
allowed.
or that, depending on your search.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if you're getting into a problem. If you have Underhill Flats, you can have 5 units. I'm assuming that first table is per
Parcel.
Per parcel.
Yes.
For what?
Per parcel.
For
But if
parcel.
that parcel is less than an acre,
Mhm.
you can still have 5? When it's 6 dwellings per acre? That's what I don't understand.
I think the minimum, what's the minimum lot size in the flats right now, like 1.5 acres or something? I know we
think
talked about
that's
that.
right, yeah.
Yeah, but this is, what is it, existing parcels? Like,
So there's an interesting study posted on the Planning Commission page that was done in 2020 with the Municipal Planning Grant that looked at housing needs and it looked at existing conditions. And one of the things that the consultant did was, she said, of the lots that already are in the village centers, how many of them are conforming to the current zoning and how many are non-conforming? Because if they're non-conforming, then that creates very strict limits on people being able to modify their property without having to go get a variance. And so her argument was, if you make this change in the minimum lot size, then you make lots that are now sort of illegal, non-conforming, into legal lots, and thereby make it simpler for property owners who on those lots to make logical changes on their property. And so this comes out of that recommendation, reducing the minimum lot size in both village centers. So more lots are conforming.
I get that. I don't understand how the proposed amendment, how does that impact the chart on the first page? Which one's predominant? The 6 family per acre?
I think they
Or
work,
the 5 units per lot?
the idea, Meg, is that they work in tandem. If you think this is, if we think this is going to be really difficult to interpret and administer, that's a good reason not to go here. However, I think a lot of communities are wrestling with these questions of density. Right now we don't have a maximum density, we have minimum density in our zoning for housing. And so this is introducing, the second amendment would introduce the new concept of maximum density. And it's trying to create some assurance for people that there's not going to be willy-nilly, highly dense, many multifamily units developed on any property in the villages.
Yeah, so
That's the
I
idea.
find it completely unclear.
it's complicated to me too. Like, I think the table was originally the thing. I think this bottom density thing was some other CCRPC recommendation, right? You said originally, like the density thing came out of some gal that was working. Or is that part of that 2020 thing, or these?
It's part of 2020.
Okay, yeah, so it's just
Yeah.
some recommendation from them.
It's just recognizing the politics of these conversations around allowable
Well,
density.
and what I don't understand from what's written up here is, are you proposing this replaces this?
No.
They work in tandem. So
Then they should agree.
it sounds confusing, but if you look at a specific lot and you
Well, see, we were supposed to do that, Larry, and that is why this is so confusing.
Okay.
We have not done it
Yep.
yet.
Well, Randy Saxton did, the consultant did in that housing study. And this illustration came out of that housing study because she was trying to show you how that work would actually work on the ground in terms of fitting in with existing housing. Like, the illustration purposefully takes an example of a larger lot with an existing dwelling, an existing outbuilding, existing accessory structure, and repurposes them or reconfigures them to accommodate a higher level of density without any change to the building envelopes in both cases. And this is because, the concept of infill development attempts to figure out how can we allow more housing units to be built without changing the vernacular that what people see from street level and how they understand the village to look and how they experience the village in a way that, is not jarring to the senses, if you will.
So it's 5 units per lot,
Yes,
and then it's 6 units per acre.
yes.
And the
So-
lot size is 1.5 acres?
No, half an acre.
You're saying.
Well,
proposing
not presently, it's not half acre.
Right.
We're gonna,
That's what we proposed, but we haven't made that change.
because that'll
Yeah,
get rid of a lot of the non-conforming.
The flats is just
Lots.
1 acre.
Okay.
And
But the way it
village
stands, it's,
center is, or the center is 1.5 on this table right now.
Yes.
I don't know, it's always been confusing to me, and that's kind of why I asked the question, like 30 years from now, will somebody be able to interpret this beyond what you've interpreted for us today? If somebody sat down with DRB
Yep.
and said, I want to build a 6-plex, can we make it work? I don't know.
So in that situation, they're gonna come in and talk to the zoning administrator, right? And the zoning administrator is gonna say, let's look at the lot or lots we're talking about, because someone might want to buy 2 lots side by side and combine them for a project as a PUD, which they can do. And so with these 2 lots, specific lots, maybe one is 3/4 of an acre, another one is 1/2 an acre. So combined, they'd be 1.25 acres. So with 1.25 acre, if the lots were combined, that's approved as part of this project, then how many units could I get out of that? And would I have to tear down what's there and start from scratch to create a new multifamily structure for it to be feasible? Or could I work within the existing structures in terms of carving them up differently or adding an addition? And the zoning administrator would give straight answers based on what's allowed, both in terms of the number of units per lot, as well as the number of units based on the acreage of whatever the lot size was. And I do think it would be a pretty straightforward
So
calculation
in your,
in a specific instance.
so in your example for this, that would constitute a 6-unit dwelling because it's greater than an acre?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
but,
25, because it's now 1 lot. You combine 2 lots to 1.
so now it's back down to 5.
Yeah.
So that's what you need in here, is something that says what's the governing factor. If these 2 things don't jive,
Yeah.
which one has ranking or something?
but that's also 1.25 acres, it's not 1.5.
But it's not, but now it's just 1 parcel.
But it's 1 parcel.
Yeah, right,
Well,
one
it'd
parcel,
be smarter to leave
And
it
it
as
says
two.
but it's
5
still,
units.
Yeah, right.
still non-conforming.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, every lot's gonna be different, right? And, we're dealing with multiple variables here, so it's hard to land on, a specific one. But you can pick a lot at random with an existing house on it in a village center, and you can say, okay, this lot is X number of acres. Right now, there's Y number of units on it. And if this were implemented, how many units could be on it? And then you could start mixing and matching. And, it's not unusual when zoning regs are tinkered with such that more density is allowed. It's not unusual for developers to look at a holistic way of like combining lots. Is it more economical to rebuild its existing historic house, or is it to take it down and start from scratch? And of course, a lot depends on what infrastructure is available. Community water, community septic, et cetera. So there's way more variables than we could possibly anticipate, and you can't generalize without looking at specific lots and existing structures, what developers will want to do. But developers can and do, work in a creative way with existing structures. And, sometimes they choose to build new, and sometimes they are interested in historic preservation and they want to rebuild within the building envelope and respect the architectural details. So I don't think we're going to be able to close this conversation tonight. But I'm trying to get us to think proactively about it. I'm happy the next time we bring it up, assuming people want to keep talking about it going forward, that, I can go out and pick 2 lots in the village center and 2 lots in the flats. And, show you pictures of what's there and show you the lot size and show you what would be allowed if these changes are enacted. And that way it'll ground the discussion in some specifics that will maybe help us get our heads around what the impact of these now 3 different proposed changes.
I mean, my initial thought is like, we're literally like twisting our brains over like 1 unit. And I know like CCRP wants all and some people want nothing, and so like, why don't we just meet in the middle
Yes.
and just make the one table and just change this one number and just throw away the density thing, because we're literally like driving ourselves nuts over one unit. Like, that's not gonna like suddenly put us over the top of our, our threshold of requirements by 2050 or whatever, right? Like, let's just keep it simple. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I
think we
agree.
should keep it simple.
I think
I'm simple.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
we're always erring on the adding more amendments and adjustments, and we should just get rid of more and make it more straightforward. 5 units or 6 units.
Jeff says keep it simple.
Keep it simple. You want to put like, just keep the 5 units there and put 4 in the Underhill Center that increases from 3 like we did. We did our due diligence of adding 1 extra unit, and it's easy.
And you're proposing changing it to a half acre versus an acre.
Right.
That was in there, yeah, on different conversations, so I don't honestly care anymore. Do what you want. Most of that, I think, was with the caveat that there was like, gonna be public sewer and water, because it's really hard to fit like a septic house on a
Absolutely.
3/4 acre lot
Yeah, or half acre.
with a well.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
or half acre, whatever it was. I think a gentleman mentioned 3/4 or something last meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
so we'll table this,
we'll table this.
subject to
Okay.
further conversation.
Sorry I ruined it, guys.
Yeah,
No, we need to have the clarification things here.
My
Yeah,
brain
me
only,
too,
my
Jeff.
brain only goes so far, and then I'm just like, done,
Yes.
shut down.
No, we need your input.
Okay.
Okay, so that brings us down to our review and approve minutes, I think.
Yes. Anybody spot any errors?
Any changes on the minutes?
No.
Everything's okay? Okay, have a motion to approve the minutes? Jen? Yes. And second? No second.
Oh, me? I'll second.
Okay,
I was
second,
waiting for
yeah.
Roy, but he's eating all the popcorn. So.
Yeah.
All those in favor of,
Good.
I,
Ridiculous.
okay. Wow.
I like that.
The,
So we went from potentially going late to like ending early? Is
We
that
have
what's
a
happening?
quorum.
I think so.
We have a quorum.
Do we
There's
have
more
a
time to
quorum?
eat your popcorn.
Because,
Yeah, that's right.
because I wasn't here last week, so I can't.
Oh,
So we can't do it?
can't do it. Approve those minutes.
You weren't here last week?
No.
Are you sure?
No, you weren't here.
1, 2,
I swear to God, I saw Bart next to me and he left. Like,
Mm,
He wasn't here last week. Last time.
Well, wait a minute, I think that, I don't think all of the people that are, I don't think we need a quorum for the minutes, do we? I mean, a quorum around the table, but not a
thought we-
quorum
I don't know.
of
Brian used to do it that way.
attendees for the minutes.
Yeah, I think you go to who attended the meeting that the minutes were about.
Yeah.
And so you need a quorum of that number, which was everybody except for Bart, right?
So we don't get it.
So that would be 8 members, and a quorum of 8 is 5.
We may
Like
never
people
get
voting.
another quorum of
Yeah,
members.
right. For these minutes.
didn't move.
Well,
So minutes are
well,
staying on
if
the
we don't,
agenda.
we don't.
Yes,
If we don't, it'll sit in limbo.
that's fine.
That's a shame because those
We
are some
could- what we
darn
could
good
do-
minutes.
I have a
man.
question
What we could
about
do is
something
we
else
could-
that I think we might want to look at, but I remember looking at it a few years ago, but I forget if it just kind of fell off the wayside.
Yeah.
But it was, I know it's a state regulation that this came up with for a friend of mine. If the town road bisects a lot, you have a house on one side, it's in the 10 acres on each side. 2 acres with the house, 8 acres across the street. The state mandates that you automatically have 2 lots. The lot across the street is actually a buildable lot. Is that right?
I was with you up until you got to the word buildable,
Well, it has to have proper septic and water and setbacks and all that.
and not encroach on wetlands and
Yeah,
that
right.
type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is true that when you have a town road or a state highway that divides a property into two chunks, that it's still, for tax purposes, it's still considered one property.
Right.
But for development purposes, it's considered two separate properties.
Yeah. So that's kind of, well, that's not in our bylaws, it's a state
I'm not so
regulation.
sure.
Is it?
thought that-
I tried looking for it because my,
Yeah.
my friend asked me about it. I'm like, I don't know.
I thought, you could have a sliver of a lot across a state highway that would not be buildable.
Well, I guess if it's too small, maybe.
Yeah, so the undeveloped lot that's across the road from the lot, that part of the lot with the house on it.
Yeah.
That, as you know, as we were talking about a moment ago, depends on, what the conditions are on the ground and whether, according to the town's zoning rules, whether it's considered a buildable lot.
If it has meets proper setbacks, has.
Setback, setback, lots, minimum lot size, access, assuming, if you're at the top of a cliff and the town road is down here and there's no way to get up to, the plateau, then the access could be an issue as well. But it has to meet all the criteria as a developable lot. And then, then you go through the permitting process.
So it might have to be like if it was zoned for 15 acres, but it was 20 and like 5 was here and 15 was there, then it would apply kind of thing.
Yeah,
But if it was like
you could
8
use
acres only,
The
then
acreage is irrelevant.
it is.
Yeah. Because you could have a non-conforming lot for that
Oh, yeah.
district. So
Right.
if this were in the 10-acre district
Yeah,
and it
it is
was
8.
8 acres to begin with, because it's an old house and 4 over here across the road, that 4 acres becomes a buildable lot. But I don't believe that's in our bylaws. I don't know if it,
It's
but
not
if
subdivided.
you say it is.
No, I'm not sure that it is.
But it doesn't need to be because it's a state regulation, or should it be in there just in case somebody decides to look?
It should be in our bylaws if it's not.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
To at least reference.
I guess it'd be good. And then also another issue is a non-conforming, this came up too, because he had another non-conforming lot that little schoolhouse was on. And the zoning administrator said he could build on that if he could get the proper septic and water on the lot. And it was a tiny lot. I mean, but he could get an easement to put it, to build on the neighbors.
Is this on Upper English?
No, but I know where you're talking about. Yeah.
Because I know somebody that bought land over there that it's now has
Oh.
looking to do stuff in the future.
Huh.
I thought maybe it was the same guy.
No. Yeah.
So what's the question?
Schoolhouse. some of us-
Yeah, like it's a small non-conforming lot. You can build on it as long as you meet the state regulations for. and
Oh, yeah.
town
If it's an
regulations for
existing,
setbacks.
if it's an existing non-conforming lot, before the zoning regulations
Right.
were brought into being, and it hasn't been changed in any way as far as the dimensions go,
Right.
then you can, it's a buildable lot, basically. It
Right.
meets the other criteria, septic, et cetera.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Because that was.
But you can't change anything about it as far as dimensions go.
Right.
The law is.
Well, yeah, actually you can.
Now, if you change the dimensions, it is not a grandfathered, buildable lot, basically. If you change the dimensions,
Oh, I see.
you're out of it.
Yeah, but you could get an easement from the neighbor to do their septic on the neighbor's. That's what
And then
you
you
do.
could adjust it, and then
What's
the
that?
town gets in a lawsuit.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Just making things-
Anyway, that was kind of,
As long as you can find it.
It's just-
Yeah.
We need an adjournment.
Oh.
Motion to adjourn.
did that already.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh,
So moved.
Ooh,
oh, wow, it's early.
motion to adjourn.
Me,
Second?
Am I seconding it? Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
Seconded.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right.
Early.
Cool.
Wow.
All right, let's cut the piece so we can start yelling.